Ich freue mich über unseren Abendvortrag und dazu muss ich jetzt schon keinen ganz neuen Gast mehr vorstellen, sondern wir freuen uns, dass auch heute Abend Bischof Tiitus unter uns ist und nach dem Gottesdienst heute Morgen, nach seiner Anwesenheit während unserer Synodalverhandlungen, er uns heute Abend noch einen Einblick in seine Kirche, in sein Land, in die Herausforderungen der Kirche und seines Landes in der Gegenwart geben wird. Heute Morgen klang einiges schon an. Ich bin sehr gespannt auf den Vortrag und freue mich, dass wir damit diesen ersten Tag beschließen können. Als Information technischer Art, Sie finden eine Übersetzung, die dankenswerterweise schon erstellt wurde, eine Übersetzung des Vortrags im SharePoint in elektronischer Form. Wir haben darauf verzichtet, jetzt noch einmal 80 Ausdrucke davon herzustellen. Für die Leute, die gerne eine deutsche Übersetzung mitverfolgen möchten, steht das dort zur Verfügung. Es wird nach dem Vortrag die Möglichkeit geben zu einem Austausch, zu einer Fragerunde, und auch da beteiligen Sie sich gerne. Fragen können gerne auch auf Deutsch gestellt werden. Wir haben die Möglichkeit, dass dann die Fragen für Bischof Tiitus übersetzt werden. Ich möchte nicht lange Vorrede halten. Ich freue mich auf Ihren Vortrag. Bitte schön.
Honored President, Honored Chair Bishop Dr. Beate Hoffmann, dear members of the Synod, brothers and sisters in Christ, I can imagine you are quite exhausted this evening because it has been a long day. Fortunately, you don't have to decide anything after my presentation and vote, but let me first of all express my thanks for this invitation, for this day. It has been extremely good and warm atmosphere, very constructive way of leading the synod. I've been really enjoying that, and also a warm hospitality by your church. I've been a bishop for 1 year. I'm still a baby bishop, and quite often it is so that going to my congregations, there is nobody taking care of me, and I'm the last one in the sacristy packing all the bishop's robes and stuff. But here I'm treated like a king, or like a Jesus Christ. So thank you, Dietel, Bernd, all the others who have prepared my visit and stay here. Hospitality is definitely one of the virtues in Christianity, and you owe that virtue. Thank you. But I have chosen as a motto of my presentation a famous quotation attributed to Martin Luther: "Even if I knew that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree." And I think that quotation very well has to do with the present situation of the Church of Estonia. We don't know what happens tomorrow, but we want to invest into future right now, here and now. It was in 1993, 2 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union and restoration of Estonia's independence, that Estonian author Emil Tode published his novel called Border State, which is regarded as one of the landmark works of Estonian literature of the 1990s. This book describes the ambitious sentiments of the people that time in relation to the end of the Soviet occupation and restoration of independent statehood. On the one side, also the euphoria of liberation and the feeling of being adrift, rootless, or even torn apart without the firm sense of belonging on the other side. Many things have been changed in the past 30 years in Estonia, but the term border state is still a suitable description to us. We are a border state in geographic and geopolitical sense due to our location between NATO and the European Union and Russia. We are border state in terms of culture and church due to our location between the West and the East, the Western Christianity and Orthodox world. We are border state with a centuries-long history of alternately belonging to the spheres of influence of Lutheran Sweden, Catholic Poland, and Orthodox Russia. But we are also a border state in the sense of our value space, because Estonia's firm course in the past decades has been towards Western European value space. But on the other hand, paradoxically, I think we are still holding on to some elements of the Soviet heritage. For instance, Estonians are very proud of they being secular people. For example, Estonia is one of the very few European countries where religious education is not offered at all to students in general education schools, or it is offered only in very few public schools. And similarly, the Estonian Evangelical Lutheran Church is a kind of border church combining the historical tradition of all people's church with the current self-concept of being a missionary church in secular society. We are not people's church anymore in numbers, but we see ourselves as people's church in terms of mission. And as I was talking to some colleagues during the dinner, quite often, especially during the last decade, we have started to see our congregations as overlapping with the community. The congregation is not just paying members or worshipping members or even baptized members, but the whole community who lives around the church building and congregation. We have no official state church according to the Estonian constitution. While Estonia, like the other Scandinavian countries, was a predominantly Lutheran country before the Second World War, all current Christian churches in Estonia are minority churches. According to the census of 2021, only 29% of the population identify themselves as religious, and 26% feel affiliated to any Christian church. The two largest Christian churches are the Lutheran Church, my church, and the Orthodox Church. In fact, there are currently two Orthodox churches in Estonia, one subordinate to the Patriarchate of Constantinople and the other to the Moscow Patriarchate. The Estonian Evangelical Lutheran Church still has the largest number of Estonian-speaking members and would be their first choice, so to say, among Estonians, Estonian Christians. And the church, as I said, has retained certain aspects of being an all-people's church, even for non-members. Only the Lutheran Church has a network of congregations which cover the entire country, with most of the congregations having existed continually since the Reformation, and many even since the Christianization of Estonia in the 13th century. Today, Estonian society lives on the boundary of war and peace, of uncertainty and hope. As I was talking this morning, on the one hand, it feels like everything can change overnight, and it would be even impossible to predict tomorrow's news or whether there will be any long-term alliances, goals, and values at all that can be relied on. The world has changed and is going to change. And on the other hand, it seems that there is nothing new under the sun. Again, we see that representatives of the major powers of this world hold negotiations, make deals, and divide spheres of influence without inviting the small ones to the table. Of course, we have been living with a perceptible sense of threat and uncertainty in Estonia for the past 3 years. And as I said, it is not just an abstract feeling of anxiety or insecurity in a kind of existential terms, but it is very concrete perception of a real threat of Russia attacking Estonia or one of the other Baltic countries or Poland with weapons. There are quite a number of more radical national defense experts in Estonia who argue that the reality of an armed conflict with Russia is not a matter of if, but it is a matter of when. And there is a lot of talk in public rhetoric that we have 3 to 5 years to prepare for Russia's assault. In a way, this creates an overall apocalyptic mood in the Baltic countries. Last spring, when I was a newly elected and consecrated bishop, I visited one of the deanery in southern Estonia, which is a borderland next to the Russia's border. And their local clergy told me that those fears I'm talking about now are very real in their daily conversations with congregation members. Based on a typical profile of the person who calls to receive pastoral care from the local pastor, she is a middle-aged woman living alone in an apartment in the town of Võru, close to the border, and her main question is what she should do. What she should do, very practical terms, when tanks and armored vehicles start pouring in over the border, when harbors and airports are closed, homes destroyed in bombing, she has no relatives in the countryside, and people in the neighborhood are being killed and raped. Of course, as pastors, as those who offer pastoral care, and also politicians in Estonia, we attempt to alleviate those fears by affirming that right now there is no real threat of war in Estonia. We can rely on our allies in NATO, and Russia's forces are unlikely to cross our borders, at least for as long as they are busy in Ukraine. However, the Church has increasingly felt the need to be prepared for crisis as well. In our consistory, in our church government, we are currently drafting recommendations on contingency planning for congregations, crisis planning for congregations. Among other aspects, these recommendations include to develop of response scenarios for the following situations. We encourage congregations to answer the following questions. What to do when the pastor of the congregation is not available for an extended period? For instance, in case of mobilization or obstacles to movement. In my country, almost all male pastors who are in the age under 60 should be prepared to be taken to the front if they don't have any health problems. Who and how will be able then to lead the services, funerals, baptisms? Who will have access to the premises and bank accounts of the congregation? Who will continue with the functions of the congregation in case of an extended power outage? What will happen to the historical assets and art pieces of the congregation if a church, congregation building or pastorate is likely to be affected by war or major catastrophe? Our consistory recommends establishing a crisis team in each congregation with specific duties and responsibilities for responding to the aforementioned threats. The church government believes that the most task of the church in case of crisis should be to continue our main service with word and sacraments. Worship services, rites, pastoral care, and intercessions must be offered in congregations even in the times of crisis. And for this, the consistory will develop guides for services of the word, prayer services, emergency baptism, and funeral to enable lay members to conduct such occasional services and rites in case of the absence of pastor. Furthermore, it is possible that church buildings and pastorates will have to be used as shelters, meeting points, or humanitarian aid distribution centers in a crisis situation. However, having said that, I don't want to give you the impression that preparing for war is the main task of the Estonian Evangelical Lutheran Church, or the main preoccupation. It is not at all like this. We are preparing for life, for peace, and for the future. More than ever before, we are now able to understand and appreciate that waking up in a free and independent Estonia without flying bombs and rockets is not something which is self-evident, which is given, which is guaranteed. It is the result of the right choices we have made in the past 30 years. It has become possible because we are not alone, because we have partners in the European Union and NATO with whom we can be strong. But as a church, as Christians, we also understand that all this is a gift from God. Which means that we also sense that we are not living in the apocalyptic time, but we live in a period of grace. And we try to use this time of grace, this kairos, for mental and spiritual strengthening of ourselves and our people. We try to tell our people, seek God for as long as he can be found. Come to the church, because right now it is possible. Let your children be baptized. Let your marriage be blessed in the church. Let you surrender yourself, your family, your land, and people to God's protection and blessing, because with him alone we can have a future. Back to the Martin Luther's, or to him attributed quotation, even if I knew that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree. What is then this apple tree? What is that symbol stands for that we can plant today? I would say that for me, and for many people in Estonia, planting an apple tree above all means my children and grandchildren. Making sure that they are safe, nourishing them, protecting them, praying for them. I'm a father of 5 daughters. I have also a 1-year grandchild. And for the church, it means that we'll focus on the work with children and youth. In our church, we are coming to the very clear realization that if we want to improve the involvement and reach among younger generation, if we want our church to have successors, we need to do something deliberately. We need to do something differently than before, because the average age of our church members and also the average age of our pastors and congregation workers is growing. Therefore, it seems symbolic to me that the Estonian Evangelical Lutheran Church will hold this autumn its first youth assembly or youth council. And it does it precisely in this critical and troubled period. The goal of this youth assembly or youth council is to connect the youth of the church from all over Estonia, to encourage them to be active in their congregations, to involve them in the activities and management of the church at large. That means that we have an organizational team which have invited each of the 170 congregations of our church to send at least one delegate to this youth assembly, who will be aged from 18 to 29. With this initiative, we want to increase the involvement of young people in church management and shaping of church life, because it is this generation who has the future, and we hope that they will be able to live in a more peaceful, more just and more human world than the world which is ours. We are doing so in the faith that God keeps us and gifts us future. Another example of the meaning of the planting of an apple tree for the Estonian Lutheran Church comes from the domain or sphere of our international and ecumenical relations. We have a saying in Estonians, "Tell me who are your friends, and I can tell you who are you." And I think it's a very Christian way of stating that as human beings we are defined by our relationships. We are defined by our friends. We are defined by our partners. As a small church of a small nation, we know very well that we can only be strong and have future together with our friends, partners, supporters, and the associations and communions where we are members, together with our partner churches like you, the Evangelical Church in Kurhessen-Waldeck. And it also means contributing to relations, which is a deeply Christian and theological approach. It seems to me that at this moment in time, the small Estonian Evangelical Lutheran Church has a disproportionately high representation at the international and ecumenical level. It's almost incredible how many friends and partners we do have. Together with 150 Lutheran churches, we are members of the Lutheran World Federation, where Estonian theologian Dr. Anne Burkhardt serves as General Secretary. Alongside many German Lutheran churches, we belong to the Communion of Protestant Churches in Europe, GECE, that elected me as one of the 3 presidents in the General Assembly held last autumn in Sibiu, and where another Estonian theologian, Professor Dr. Toomas Andreas Põder, serves as theological consultant. Our church is represented in the governing board of the Conference of European Churches and in the Central Committee of the World Council of Churches. Together with Scandinavian Lutheran churches and the Church of England, we are active participants in the Porvo Communion. Having organized our service under the Soviet occupation and after the restoration of Estonia's independence, we have experienced invaluable aid, communion, help, intercessions, also material aid from our partner churches, including your church. And for this reason, I'm particularly glad to note that today we are not only receivers, but perhaps we also have something to contribute. And I'm happy and grateful in the best sense that the historical experience and current service of my small church in Estonia as a border state has found such a high recognition among the family of Christian and Lutheran churches. I'm very happy that together with you and other partners, we can work in the Christian associations, communions, where we can make our contribution to stand up together for freedom, democracy, human rights, compassion, and service in Europe and the world. The more Europe and the world is thrown apart, the more need we as churches, as Christians, seek for cooperation, seek for bridging all the walls, seek to reconciliation and better democratic world. And even more importantly, to bear joint witness in word and deed to the coming of God's kingdom through the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, especially through his self-sacrificing suffering and his victorious resurrection. As I started with a piece of literature in Estonia, I would like to conclude with the words of one of the greatest Estonian writers of the 20th century, whose name is Jaan Kross, and his words spoken at the funeral of the first president of again independent Estonia, Lennart Meri. And he said in his funeral speech, "You, Lennart Meri, have said that 22nd August 1991 was the happiest day of your life, because on this day Estonia declared its independent statehood." And the writer Jaan Kross continues to say to his funeral speech, "I do not want to argue with a great man, but in a painful and outrageous manner, I also like another day from your life, a much earlier day in your life that was truly lived for Estonia. Your family was deported to Siberia. And as young boys, you returned from school in Kirov Oblast, you and your brother. It was a school in Siberia, in Yaransk. And after you had entered the forest, you noticed that you were chased by a pack of wolves. You decided to continue walking because you were in a hurry. Boys are always in a hurry. And you had a single source of hope, a half-full box of matches. Just half-full box of matches. And you and your brother started to tear sheets from your exercise book, lighting them up and throwing them on the path of the wolves. And it seems that the wolves were not particularly convinced in their method either, and they stopped at each burning sheet until the smells of the village ahead forced them back to the forest. For me, this story has been a parable for the past 60 years, indicating that even though hope can be very slim, very small at times, we should still believe in the return of divine justice. Thank you very much for your patience and attention. Well, yes, sorry, if I can. I have been choosing one piece of music. I think many of you know that there is a quite high choir culture in Estonia, and song festivals are taking place. And there is just one piece from my hometown where my bishop's seat is Viljandi, and last summer, in last July 2024, a spiritual song festival took place. And I would share with you one choir music written by Estonian composer Rudolf Tobias, and the text the text is taken from the 1 Corinthians 3:16. Don't you know that you are the temple of the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit lives in you? So if it's possible to see and listen, I would conclude with that.
Eks teie tea. Juhatab Raul Talmar.
Well, thank you, thank you. Sometimes music speaks more than human words.
Manchmal, wenn man Musik gehört hat, soll man schweigen. Wir müssen nicht schweigen und wir sollten nicht schweigen jetzt, sondern die Gelegenheit nutzen, nach einer bewegenden Musik und nach einem intensiven Vortrag noch ins Gespräch zu kommen. Das können wir tun. Ich bitte um Ihre und eure Fragen und wir werden Frage für Frage auch dann direkt übersetzen. Bitte, Frau Cekala.
Ja, es ist für mich fremd und sehr bedrückend, wenn Sie sagen, es ist nicht eine Frage von ob, sondern eine Frage von wann. Und Sie mit dem russischen Angriff auf Estonia rechnen und dass eine Kirche in den Alltag einbaut, wie man sich auf diese Invasion vorbereiten kann, als Kirche, als Mensch, als Seelsorger, als jemand, der das Evangelium verkündet. Das Gefühl haben wir hier nicht, aber das Gefühl haben Sie und es ist sehr deutlich geworden. Und die Frage ist, also man ist ja in einer Angstsituation, wann könnte es sein, wie bereite ich mich vor? Die Frage ist, haben Sie das Gefühl, von Wölfen umgeben zu sein? Und wer könnte das Streichholz und das Blatt Papier sein?
Yes, thank you, thank you. I think as I tried to say, what is most important for us is that we are not alone, that we are part of Europe, European Union, NATO. Of course, there are doubting voices also in our country who say that, forget about it. None of the NATO countries would actually come to protect you, or even if they come after 2 weeks of discussion, the country is already destroyed. But I think this is not true. The only way to look for the future is to believe that we are together, and together we can stand for the evil. If we would lose that perspective, all will be lost. Because Estonia is such a small country that for us alone it's not possible. And another thing is that divine providence, because my generation has experienced how very quickly and unreasonably and unbelievably quickly Soviet Union collapsed. This was a superpower. This was something in my childhood and youth that nobody would challenge. And actually somehow during a couple of years and in the late phase during days and hours, it just disappeared. Which means that as Christians, we know that everything is in God's hand. There can be solutions what we cannot predict at the moment. But of course, on the other hand, we have to do what is our duty and also be ready for the worst scenarios.
Wie ich schon betont hatte im Vortrag, wir sind nicht alleine. Es gibt natürlich zweifelnde Stimmen im Land, die sagen, das ist alles nur Gerede, wenn es ernst auf ernst kommt, dann wird die NATO viel diskutieren und die Menschen, die an eurer Seite sind, werden lange brauchen, bis sie handeln. Aber ich glaube daran, dass es so ist, dass wir nicht alleine sind. Meine Generation hat erlebt, wie die Sowjetunion kollabiert ist. Auf einmal, von einem Tag auf den anderen, war alles anders. Also wir sehen, dass die Dinge nicht vorhersehbar sind und als Christen glauben wir fest daran, dass wir nicht alleine sind. Und natürlich müssen wir unsere Verpflichtungen tun, die uns auferlegt sind und uns vorbereiten und gefasst sein auf das, was kommen kann.
And of course, I just add that of course Estonia does or has taken many steps to secure our military defenses and invested quite a lot also to that sphere, of course.
Ich möchte natürlich noch ergänzen, dass unsere Regierung eine ganze Menge getan hat, um vorbereitet zu sein, um das Militär entsprechend auszurüsten und gewappnet zu sein für das, was kommt.
Vielen Dank, Herr Sadowski.
Lieber Herr Bischof, haben Sie herzlichen Dank für Ihren Vortrag, haben Sie auch herzlichen Dank für Ihre Predigt heute Morgen. Das hat mich zweifach heute Morgen sehr berührt und heute Abend wieder an einem Tag wie diesem in Deutschland, diese ehrlichen, diese glaubensstarken und diese eigentlich auch uns ermunternden und zum Vertrauen und zur Partnerschaft aufrufenden Worte zu hören. Wir haben gerade in Ihrem Vortrag gesagt, wir leben in Estland, als könne sich über Nacht alles ändern. Sie haben das dann erläutert, was das bedeutet für das estnische Volk, für die estnische Regierung und auch für die estnische Kirche. Und Sie haben das dankenswerterweise sehr konkret getan. Jetzt ist gerade schon angesprochen worden, dass wir hier in Mitteleuropa, in Deutschland möglicherweise in einer völlig anderen Situation uns befinden. Dennoch möchte ich Sie fragen, als Vertreter einer Kirche, die unsere Partnerkirche ist in Osteuropa, als Vertreter eines Volkes, was sehr viel näher an der russischen Grenze beheimatet ist, was empfehlen Sie uns als Volk in Europa, was empfehlen Sie uns als Kirche? Welche Haltung sollen wir einnehmen, um vielleicht noch konkreter zu werden? Wie bereiten wir uns auf mögliche Szenarien vor, die vielleicht nicht in der Nähe liegen wie in Estland, aber dann doch ein paar Kilometer weiter? Dankeschön.
Yeah, thank you for this very honest question. I think as Christians, as members of our partner church, so first of all, convince your politicians to take seriously your contributions and duties in NATO and European Union. I think now, in the situation when there are no good solutions, still the only solution is to support Ukraine. To put it, as you ask me honestly, I answer honestly. Give money and weapons to Ukraine. As Christians, as a church, I think you have done so much for us that I don't have any more wishes or advices. Pray for us, support us. Let us stand together for free and democratic world.
Herzlichen Dank für die sehr ehrliche Frage. Als Christen und als eure Partner möchten wir natürlich darauf antworten, aber es ist in erster Linie Sache der Politiker, eine Lösung zu finden. Und es sieht so aus, als ob es gar keine Lösung gibt im Moment, die irgendjemand empfehlen kann. Wenn wir etwas empfehlen können, dann ist es politisch gesehen, sendet Geld und sendet Waffen an die Ukraine. Als Christen habe ich keine weiteren Empfehlungen an euch als Partner und auch keine Erwartungen mehr als das, was bisher läuft.
Ich habe 4 Meldungen jetzt noch auf meiner Liste. Ich fange mal in der Reihenfolge an. Das ist Herr Wiegand, das ist Herr Zurniden, das ist Herr Dr. Klöckner, das ist Frau Schäffer. Dann haben wir noch eine weitere Meldung. Erstmal in dieser Reihenfolge, Herr Wiegand.
Ja, vielen Dank, Herr Tiitus, für Ihre sehr tiefgehenden Informationen. Mich würde interessieren, wie sieht es denn bei Ihnen mit dem theologischen Nachwuchs aus? In dieser angespannten Situation, finden Sie Menschen, junge Menschen, die sich als Theologen, als Pastoren ausbilden lassen? Machen Sie das in Ihrer eigenen Regie? Haben Sie dort eigene Fortbildungsmöglichkeiten? Wie sieht das bei Ihnen aus?
It's a theological education, yeah. Yes, of course. It is possible to study theology in Estonia, basically in 2 institutions. One is the public university in Tartu, previous Dorpat, and another is church-owned theological institute or seminary in Tallinn. But of course, now the world is open to us, and there are people who study abroad using different stipends and programs. For example, I know quite a number of people who have spent a year or semester in Marburg, in Leipzig. So that is also one way of cooperating, sharing the resources, because as a small country and small nation, we can't have that high-level theology as you have much more resources, also human resources.
Sorry to interrupt. The question was more focusing on recruiting theologians to come up.
Well, yes, we try to do that. Of course, we have a shortage of theologians, or I would say so that the tendency is nowadays that the average age of students of theology is growing, and more people in their 50s are coming to study theology and work in the church, and which has this tendency has its advantages but also disadvantages. And now the main questions is how to recruit the more younger people, and also as the economic resources of congregations are decreasing, and the problem is how to offer jobs, pastor's jobs, to those who have theological degree.
Ja, natürlich, der Nachwuchs fehlt uns. Die Tendenz ist aber so, dass mittlerweile die etwas älteren Menschen, also über 50-Jährige, sich melden und gerne Theologie studieren. Das hat Vorteile und Nachteile. Unsere Frage ist natürlich, wie kriegen wir junge Leute in diesen Beruf? Und die Frage, die damit auch zusammenhängt, ist die Bezahlung. Das ist in Estland ein großes Problem. Das ökonomische, wie soll ein Job bezahlt werden und wer meldet sich, wenn man rauskriegt, wie viel Geld man dafür bekommt.
Zurniden.
Herr Bischof, seit einigen Jahren hat man immer wieder von politischen und kulturellen Spannungen zwischen dem estnischsprachigen Bevölkerungsteil und dem russischsprachigen Bevölkerungsteil gehört. Alle sind estnische Staatsbürger, alle sind Bürger der Europäischen Union, vermute, dass die beiden orthodoxen Kirchen, die Sie beschrieben haben, im Wesentlichen im russischsprachigen Bevölkerungsteil wurzeln. Welche Rolle spielt vor diesem Hintergrund gegenwärtig Ökumene? Gibt es ökumenische Kontakte, die auch die politische Situation handhaben, oder ist die Frage zu offensiv? Ich hätte auch Verständnis dafür, wenn Sie sagen, das ist zu heikel, das kann ich jetzt nicht ansprechen.
Well, yes, thank you. I would say that ecumenical cooperation and relations in Estonia are pretty good. As our country is secular, all Christian churches are minority churches. There is no one big brother who doesn't need anybody else. And I would say it's quite good. There is Estonian Council of Churches, the roof organization, which contains 10 Christian churches. And also the ecumenical relations of Lutherans with Orthodox churches are quite good, I would say. But currently there is the issue is that we have two Orthodox churches, Estonian and Russian ones, and their relations are not so good, or there are many tensions because of two Orthodox churches. But I would say they get along better with Lutherans than to each other.
Die ökumenische Situation ist eigentlich sehr gut in Estland, zumal die Christen alle zusammenhalten. Es gibt also keinen Grund für irgendeine Kirche zu sagen, ich brauche meine Schwestern und Brüder nicht. Die Kirchen halten zusammen und es gibt eine sehr gute Verbindung auch zwischen den lutherischen Kirchen und den orthodoxen. Jedenfalls zu der einen orthodoxen Kirche. Was das Problem ist, ist, dass die beiden orthodoxen Kirchen, also mit dem einen Patriarchat Konstantinopel und die andere Moskau, dass die sich nicht untereinander verstehen. Also der Kontakt zu den Lutherischen ist ganz gut, aber da hört es dann auf.
Dr. Klöckner.
Herr Bischof, vielen Dank für Ihre Rede. Ich bin ein sehr enger Freund von Estland. Ich bin selber oft dort gewesen und habe Ihre Kirche immer als eine sehr kleine Kirche empfunden, aber mit einem großen Einfluss in der Gesellschaft. Also Radiosender und viel Digitales, also sehr viel Einfluss. Für mich wäre interessant zu wissen, angesichts dieser russischen Gefahr, gibt es ein wachsendes Interesse an Kirche und an Gebeten und an Gottesdiensten angesichts der Gefahr, die von Russland jetzt ausgeht für ihr Volk?
In Russian Orthodox Church.
No, his question was if due to the threat from Russia,
in your church,
has the interest grown in the country to ask for church, for services, for prayers?
I would say that the influence of Christianity and also the influence of my church has really increased, not rapidly, but step by step during last 10 years, I would say. There are there is a number of reasons behind that. Definitely corona crisis and problems with mental health and all kinds of psychological problems which make some people to seek for spiritual nourishment and practices. I would also say that our current Archbishop Urmas Viilma has done very good job presenting church in the public media and life, which means that a public interest has grown. And also, I think that the war in Ukraine has some influence on that. So we experience not any rapid change, but slowly growing interest, or let's say that we have many options, many opportunities to spread the gospel. If we would have enough resources and courage to use that, but actually the time is good now.
Der Einfluss der Kirche ist gewachsen in den letzten 10 Jahren, muss man sagen. Das hat viele Gründe, da hängt auch Corona mit zusammen. Und das, was die Kirche an mentaler Unterstützung geben konnte, also die Suche nach spiritueller Begleitung, wächst. Und unser Erzbischof Urmas Wilma hat einen guten Job getan, denn er ist sehr präsent in den Medien und kann Mediales und Aktuelles, also was im Leben wichtig ist, gut vermitteln. Also ich muss sagen, das öffentliche Interesse ist gestiegen, langsam wächst es, aber ja, wir haben viele Gelegenheiten der Verkündigung.
Silvia Schäffer.
Verehrter Bischof, Sie haben beschrieben, dieses sei keine Zeit der Apokalypse, sondern der Gnade. Und Sie riefen die Menschen, zur Kirche zu kommen, zur Taufe, zur Segnung ihrer Ehen, ihrer Häuser, ihrer Ländereien. Mich interessiert, ob die Menschen diesem Ruf folgen und welche Menschen das tun.
I would say they don't answer to that call as often as we would like to. So which means that the threat is not yet that intense. Yeah, but on the other hand, as I said, the interest to come to church has somehow increased. What we experience in secular society is that believing and belonging, as you perhaps know also from your country, is not the same thing. And there are many people who really are interested, who support either spiritually or even by donations what the church is doing, but not ready to become baptized and confirmed. That there is a strong disbelief among Estonians into institutions. Most of Estonians would say that I believe in something, I'm religious in a way, but my own way. I'm in Estonian way. I don't need to belong. And therefore it's sometimes much easier to engage people in a church project or some service concrete project than to convince them that baptism is something which you need for your to be saved.
Ja, die Bedrohung ist vielleicht noch nicht so groß, wie manche das glauben, aber das Interesse steigt. Es gibt aber ein unterschiedliches Interesse. Es gibt Menschen, die haben das spirituelle Interesse, andere geben gerne Spenden auch. Aber wenn es um Taufe und Konfirmation geht, da findet man mehr Zurückhaltung. Auf der anderen Seite haben die Menschen ein großes Vertrauen in Institutionen. Trotzdem wollen sie nicht so richtig dazugehören. Also wenn es um Taufe oder Konfirmation, also Verbindlichkeiten geht, dann nicht. Aber es ist leichter, die Menschen für ein Projekt zu gewinnen oder für einen ganz bestimmten Gottesdienst.
Ich hatte die Meldung von Frau Tümmler gesehen, aber vorher, das war Herr Kunert und nicht auch schon Frau Tümmler, oder? Wenn ich das richtig sehe, dann wäre Herr Kunert. Gut, vielen Dank. Dann gehen wir zu Frau Tümmlers Frage.
Vielen Dank, dass Sie uns so Einblick geben in Ihre Kirche. Mich interessiert speziell, wie ist denn die Präsenz der Frauen bei Ihnen in der Kirche, insbesondere natürlich auch von Pfarrerinnen. Ich weiß, dass Sie ja schon lange Jahre, über 50 Jahre, wenn ich da richtig informiert bin, die Frauenordination in Ihrer Kirche haben. Und wie wirkt sich das ökumenisch aus, gerade mit der orthodoxen Kirche, vielleicht gerade mit der russisch-orthodoxen?
Yeah, thank you. As you mentioned, we have ordination of women already more than 50 years, and roughly 1/3 of our clergy are ladies. And I would suggest that this number is increasing in the future. And actually, I don't feel in my church. And that is different, very different from the Church of Latvia. I don't feel many tensions. Yes, there are some pastors, male pastors, who say that, well, that's not biblical to have female pastors, but that's really a very small minority and not influential. So I would say it's quite balanced in my church. And
water for you, if you like, on the left side.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Ja, also Sie haben recht mit 50%, Entschuldigung, 50 Jahre schon Frauenordination, das stimmt. Mittlerweile sind es mehr als 1/3 Frauen im Dienst der Kirche und das sieht anders aus als in Lettland. Da gibt es eine ganze Menge Spannungen. Bei uns gibt es auch Spannungen, aber das ist wirklich die Minderheit.
2 of our 12 deanery area deans are women. No woman bishops so far, but actually there is no restriction in the church law for ladies to become bishops as well.
Der Weg ist frei für die Frauen. Es gibt derzeit 2 Dekaninnen, aber keine Bischöfin. Es gibt in Estland ja einen Erzbischof und 3 Regionalbischöfe. Er ist einer davon. Also es gibt keine Restriktionen für den Dienst der Frauen.
Ich habe jetzt noch die Meldung von Herrn Kiepe gesehen und sehe darüber hinaus keine weiteren. Dann nehmen wir das als Abschlussfrage.
Herr Bischof, haben Sie vielen Dank für den bereichernden osteuropäischen Blick auf die Welt. Da kann man in Westeuropa viel von lernen. Was man noch von Estland lernen kann, ist die Digitalisierung des Lebens. Vielleicht können Sie uns da noch was zu sagen, wie digital die estnische Kirche ist? Was können wir da auch von Ihnen lernen und was sollten wir umsetzen?
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's true that comparing to even to European countries, we are quite digitalized, and that has to do also. Sometimes we think that it's too much, because there are, for example, some political parties who would strongly oppose to the digital elections, because in my country it's possible to vote for political elections under the screen of your computer. But for example, we sign all the documents with a digital ID in my handy, and also the documents of baptisms and funerals in the church, so that just in a very festive occasions you write your signature with a pen. I don't know if you have something to learn from us, but yes, that could be, of course, a matter of joint seminar or discussion if you feel that it's a direction you want to go.
Ja, es stimmt, wir sind sehr gut digitalisiert. Manche finden es zu viel. In unserem Land kann man die Wahl von Politikern auf dem Bildschirm unternehmen. Wir in der Kirche arbeiten auch schon sehr viel digital, auch mit den Unterschriften. Die sind in der Regel digital zu leisten, außer bei Kasualien. Was können wir machen? Wir könnten mal zusammen ein Seminar machen zu diesem Thema.
I take the idea with me.
Er nimmt die Idee mit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if I have used much more time than was in the schedule now, but thank you for your patience.
Wir haben uns ganz herzlich zu bedanken und wir wollen das mit kleinen Geschenken machen. Ich habe heute Morgen Matthäus 25 im Ohr von der Frage, wer wem hilft, wer wem zu essen gibt und wer der Partner ist, der von dem anderen etwas gegeben bekommt und wer der Partner ist, der vom anderen etwas nimmt. Ich bin mir nach diesem Tag nicht sicher, ob Ihr Bild heute Morgen aus der Predigt stimmt, dass Sie, die in der Rolle sind des Nehmenden und viele andere vermeintlich größere, vermeintlich stärkere, in der Rolle sind zu geben. Wenn man uns in Kurhessen aber fragt, zu geben und zu essen zu geben, dann geben wir das, was sich hier in dieser Tüte befindet. Das heißt im Anschluss an Matthäus 25 das erste Geschenk und es kommt ein zweites dazu. Sagen Sie ganz
Deutsch oder Englisch?
Sagen Sie ganz kurz was zur Kerze und dann würde ich das.
Das zweite Geschenk ist ein symbolisches Geschenk, mehr als das erste, und hat zu tun mit einer Idee, die durch unsere Region gegangen ist, The Traveling Peace Candle. Wir wollen Ihnen eine Kerze mitgeben, eine sogenannte Wanderfriedenskerze, die ist im südlichen Teil unserer Landeskirche entstanden und von September bis September wandert die Kerze immer von einer Gemeinde zur anderen oder von einer friedensaktiven Gruppe zur nächsten. Und die Mission dieser Kerze ist, wir wollen Menschen zusammentrommeln, die auch für den Frieden beten wollen, die einen Gottesdienst zum Frieden feiern wollen und diese Idee weitergeben. Und die Friedenskerzen der letzten Jahre sind alle schon auch ins Ausland gegangen, aber es ist noch keine nach Estland gegangen. Und wir würden das gerne Ihnen mitgeben nach Estland, dass die Kerze dort brennen kann und Sie auch Menschen finden, die mit uns in Solidarität für den Frieden beten.
Ich verbinde das mit dem Vers aus Matthäus, den wir heute noch nicht gehört haben. Lassen Sie Ihr Licht leuchten, lassen Sie das Licht leuchten dort, wo vermutlich viel Dunkel Sie umgibt. Und ich habe den Eindruck, Sie lassen auch unser Licht dort mitleuchten. Vielen Dank.